Hello everyone. Previously I covered database mirroring as a high availability option for SQL Server. Today I'll cover another popular high availability option, which is log shipping. Log shipping automatically ships transaction logs to another server. You can also set up log shipping to send out logs to multiple servers. With database mirroring, you don't have the option to copy to multiple servers. You can only copy to one server. When you set up log shipping, SQL Server will create 3 SQL agent jobs. The first one, which is on the primary server, will back up the transaction log. The second job is on the secondary server, and that one will copy the log backup from the primary server to the secondary server. And the third job is also on the secondary server. This one will restore the log backup, which replays the log entries onto the secondary database. To set up log shipping, the database has to be in full recovery mode. Here I have 2 SQL Server instances. The default instance, this one will be my primary server. And here the SQL 1 name instance, this will be my secondary server. I have a database testdb1, which is what I'm going to log ship onto this secondary server, which currently has no databases. To set up log shipping, the database has to be in full recovery mode. And we could check that, make sure that it is set to the right recovery mode. Under options, for recovery model, we have full. So the first step in setting up log shipping is to initialize the database on the secondary server. This means we need to take a full backup of the primary database as well as a transaction log backup and restore those onto the secondary server. So first I'm going to take a full backup of testdb1, and I'm also going to take a transaction log backup. And save it into that same file. Now on the secondary server, we'll need to restore that. Restore the database as testdb1, and we want to restore both the database backup and the transaction log backup. Now under files, I'm just going to change the location of the physical file here. On the options page, we need to set the recovery state. We can set it to either no recovery or standby. With either one of these options, it leaves the database in a state where it can continue replaying transaction log files. With no recovery, it leaves the database inaccessible. You won't be able to access any data from it. With standby, it leaves the database in read-only mode. So you can still query the database and get data from it. So I'm going to choose standby. And with standby, it creates this extra file, this standby file, with an extension .bak. In previous versions of SQL Server, this used to be a .tuf file, which stood for transaction undo file. It It's a different extension now, but it still serves the same purpose. It contains the information on modifications made as part of any incomplete transactions at the time the backup was made. This file is required and is automatically generated when you configure logic shipping in standby mode. So once you have your recovery state set, you press enter or click OK. And now we have the database restored. And if we look at our secondary instance, we see the database is now there in standby mode and read-only. So the database is now fully initialized.